don't know what face. I laughed right over it. I ruined it. Oh
Yes,
no.
you did.
Chris, I overthought it because, I'm always looking at our Facebook page and it like auto plays as I'm scrolling past it. So I'm like constantly looking at my face, like listening for the beer can opening, and I couldn't decide what
Satisfying.
pose I wanted to do, and I ruined it. Chris, was it crisp? It sounded kind of crisp.
Oh, it was so crisp. It was as
So crisp.
crisp as it's ever been.
Oh my god. Amazing,
That's
amazing.
crispy as ever.
Oh, Marie Mitchell, hey. Your face looks great, Katie. Thank you, Marie. You are the sweetest, and I appreciate that. Always sending an encouraging comment. And I saw Marie and I correspond, and we chat about poetry, and we workshop a little bit, and it's wonderful. I need to hop in here on my phone. I need to monitor things. I need to monitor the situation. I am very purple today, Chris. Did you
Look,
notice that? We're like very.
well, no, because I didn't really notice it because we got the banner there.
Oh, the banner. So you didn't see my multi-purple top?
Purple.
And I've got my purple earrings, got my purple sparkly eyeshadow. And then of course my purple lights. And I was kind of doing this as a belated happy International Women's Day, which was last Monday. Excuse me, Tuesday.
I think it was Tuesday.
The 8th. Oh geez. Apologies. Yes, Tuesday. It was on Tuesday, March 8th. So happy International Women's Day to everyone out there. And it's been a good one. It's been a wild week. It's been a little bit springtimey here and there, a little bit wintry here and there, but that's how March goes, Chris, right?
That is how March goes. It's cold today, and on Friday it's going to be like 70.
It's amazing. I kind of love like the schizophrenic weather. It's kind of exciting, but after March it's going to get old. It better get warm.
I'm done with the snow. I'm done with the sleet.
Yeah.
That stuff. Right this time of year, it's always done. Like March comes around, I'm like, okay.
I've had it. That's enough. Well, maybe the reason why I'm okay with seeing more snow is because I don't have to like shovel it.
Yeah. Well, there wasn't much going on this week, just a tiny bit, but still.
That's true. It wasn't really much shovelable snow.
No, but that's it's neither here nor there. It's just I'm ready for some green.
Yes.
Some warmth, and
totally.
I'll be good to go. I will be good to go. So
yes.
We'll see. Maybe next week by this time, next Sunday, it'll be a little warmer, and we'll be happy, right?
Absolutely, we will be. I mean, I'm already feeling the happiness and optimism at this point in the day I am, because early this morning when I had to wake up for like the morning shift, the day of daylight savings, I was not feeling how bright it was. I was not like, this is great. But now I'm feeling like this is great because we had a lot more sunshine today, and that makes a difference. It's gonna help me save money on my vitamin D budget,
No kidding. We got Mom and Dad here. Hey, Mom and Dad.
Hey, Mom and Dad.
We'll see how many people out there did not change their clock.
That's right. And sometimes the Facebook notifications can be a little bit weirdly delayed on that, depending. I've at least noticed that in the past where there seems to be a miss on the time change, and people were getting notifications early, getting them late. But anyways, we're glad that you're here, and oh, we've got our viewer count is quickly increasing. How exciting! We can only see our count for Facebook and YouTube, but we see you out there on Twitter. Well, we don't, but we know that you're there.
know you're
And
there.
we're just dreaming of the day. We're always talking about it, about the day that we somehow are able to stream to Instagram. We would love that. And hopefully one day that's possible. But it is 7 o'clock, so it's time to give our official welcome, Chris, to FUMFA 87.
Whoa.
Crazy, wild, what a number. We are inching closer and closer to our 100th episode, and closer and closer to our 2-year anniversary. So awesome. But tonight on FUMFA 87, we have with us Nicole Caruso Garcia. We are so excited to have her back, and we are going to be celebrating with her a bit because she has her first book-length manuscript being published very, very shortly, Oxblood, and we just can't wait to hear from her on that. And we have also Ken Cormier with us tonight, and it's going to be an awesome night of readings. But Chris, tell us what else is coming up.
Well, next week on the 20th of March, we have our spring open mic night, and we have just a cavalcade of talented people on here.
A total cavalcade. What a word.
In fact, let me go through it here. I have to read it because there's no way I'll remember it. We have Bob Howe, Derek Webster, Phil Lemos, Meg Moore, Renee Newberry, Lindsay Vernon, Megan Muldowney, Brenda Sorrells, Matt Garland, and Alexis G. Garcia. That's 10.
We are super excited. It's going to be a party.
Helping us to usher in springtime. So
yes,
don't miss that. Don't miss that. And then the following week, of course, it is the 2-year anniversary of Poets and Writers. Unbelievable that we'll be at it for 2 years. 2 years, and that'll be our 89th show, and we will have, I haven't counted them lately, 200 plus distinct authors.
That's amazing.
We have another cavalcade of talent that night. We've got our friends Midnight and Chance,
Woo!
Paul Conqueso, Mr. Latour, and we got our dear old friend Baron Wormser. We got Devin Bowman. We've got our friend Elena Dillon and Victoria Buitron, right?
That's right.
Oh, man, again, do not miss that.
Gonna be an amazing night and such a celebration. And it's as much a celebration for us and our guests that night as it is of all of you who have tuned in, who have made this such a wonderful just a wonderful community for us, where we get to share incredible readings, where we get to celebrate each other's published work and books and everything that we're working on. And it just means so much to us to do this and to share it with you. So we're excited. We're really excited. And, Chris, I hate to mention it, but March 13th is about the 2-year anniversary of when everyone went home from work and didn't go back to the office.
Right.
So, I think at least here in our area of the United States, things have gotten so much better. And I think we're all very, very thankful that we can be in this place, that we can be in this place together, that we can be vaccinated, and that we can enjoy all of these wonderful readings, happy and healthy and all together. So, just lots of wonderful and interesting memories. We've kind of made it to a good place here. But without, yes, Chris?
We're going to keep doing this, and then on occasion, when things are appropriate, we will have some live readings somewhere.
We're very excited.
In the vicinity, and we're going to make it happen. So.
We are. Stay tuned. We're just talking about that a little bit. It's going to be great. Well, without further ado, Chris, we need to get into welcoming our first reader of the night, who is Nicole Caruso Garcia. Welcome, Nicole.
Thank you.
Nicole, we are so thrilled to have you back, and we are so excited about your book.
Thanks. I'm excited as well.
Yes. Okay,
So
so
delighted.
let me share your bio with our audience here. You all might remember Nicole from a feature spot she had a few months back, and also from our memorial for Dr. Kim Bridgeford. Nicole is, along with me, a Kim Bridgeford disciple and dear friend. So it's always wonderful to have you, Nicole. All
Thank
right.
you.
Nicole Caruso Garcia is the author of the forthcoming full-length poetry collection, Oxblood, from Able Muse Press 2022, which was named a finalist for the Able Muse Book Award and the Richard Wilbur Award. Recently, her work was selected by Kavi Akbar for Best New Poets 2021, and her poems appear in Diagram, Crab Orchard Review, Light, Mezzo Camine, One Art, Pank, Plume, the Raintown Review, Rattle, Rhino, Sonora Review, Spillway, and elsewhere. She serves as an associate poetry editor at Able Muse and a board member at Poetry by the Sea, a global conference. And you can visit her online at NicoleCarusoGarcia.com. We're excited to hear you, Nicole. Take it away.
Thanks very much. So primarily tonight I'll be reading from Oxblood, and then toward the end I will read a couple of poems from my as of yet untitled manuscript in progress for book 2. The first poem is called Appraisal. Appraisal. Once raped, you wear it daily. Learn to see the cut, the color, clarity, and carat. Each time you try to square asymmetry, it cleaves, reveals another jagged facet. Fool, you think it fits inside one poem. No, with map and calipers and microscope, your story since you came to wear that stone, flawed and heart-shaped, bluer than the hope. Since you must wear it, hone it with precision. Leave your wrists unslit, the blood unbled, to cut and polish sin to scintillation. Woman, rise up from the rhinestone dead. Yet what can cut a diamond? Nothing can, except the hardest substance known to man. The next poem is dedicated to Dr. Leslie Goldstone Orley, who happens to be my gynecologist. And yes, I have shown her this poem. It's called, Have You Ever Been a Victim of Violence? 11 Reasons Why I Don't Check Yes. 1, because the box, once X'd, can't be undone. 2, because to check the box is like a sadder version of I voted. 3, because I'll disappoint my angel of a gynecologist. She'll ask me, when? And see, I've kept the truth from her for years. 4, because, damn it, I resent the box, just waiting there to ambush me again. 5, because I bristle at the label victim and survivor. Can't win, both dice are loaded. 6, because the waiting room is Starbucks busy. 7, because the box is no confessional. 8, because there is no exorcist on staff. 9, Because don't ask me to concede a thing when it's already such a feet in stirrups, flashlight on my cervix kind of day. 10. Because of women wearing crowns of thorns far thornier than mine. 11. Because what grit I've got, I ration. Ghost ship. At a distance, candles guttering can look like party lights, the way a ghost ship might seem from shore. It may have seemed I was carousing. It may have hurt you seeing my illuminated decks, my painted flags livened by wind. Despair is so immaculate a plague. A healthy vessel still will float, although you pillaged all the spirit from its hold. A ship like that may run aground or wreck against the cliffs, adrift between the quick and the dead. It is not sorry, does not love or hate. It lists. The next poem is called Dear Reader, and there's an epigraph from the French essayist Roland Barthes from a piece he wrote called The Pleasure of the Text. And the epigraph is not the most erotic portion of the body where the garment gapes, the intermittence of skin flashing between two articles of clothing. It is this flash itself which seduces. Dear reader, you come to hear me come undone, the diction taut then loose from my chameleon tongue. You sometimes wonder if it's fact, the friction of my lover's stubble where I'm stung. You gape at what the gaping might expose. What will my inky fingerprints betray? I lie sincerely. My words conceal, disclose no more, no less than paint or bronze or clay. Yet what I thought was simply ink grows thick and hardens, forged like opalescent stone or bee-flecked amber, set in a mosaic I can't stop. In truth, I'm not just shown in dishabille, however crude or sacred. Soon, all I've offered God to you lies naked. To the Undertaker. Undertaker, I have sought you, hover close above. My overtaker, faith shaker, was the man I loved. Sew my useless jaw together, drain my blood's scant volume. He moved as though my lips were stitched by all the days I'd loved him. Your devotion lasts 2 hours. Tend and wash my body. In merely minutes, he had made unholy Holy Friday. Fill me with your reeking fluid, harsh, but not unkind. Preserve my body with your proof. His petrified my mind. Pack my cavities with gauze, make pretty perjury. I thought I was a woman loved. I am an effigy. Paint my face so lifelike, they will marvel at my charms. Who's that makeup for? He asked. Gawkers now, and worms. Oh, gentlemen of more respect, lay coins upon my eyes. He made me lesser than a whore, staked claim between my thighs. I was his would-be wife. And still, you dress me for the church. A gown of silken muslin for a carcass with no worth. The next poem I'm going to read is the title poem from my forthcoming book, Oxblood. Go to Shepler's on North First in Tucson. Buy yourself a pair of cowboy boots. You're East Coast, so the sales clerk won't attempt to sell you Tony Lama or Lucchese. She'll steer you toward a discontinued pair of Sanders, plain, just under $90. And when you hesitate, Cordovan? She'll gently pull the wadding from their throats, correcting you politely. These are goatskin, oxblood. Under other circumstances, brown or black would do, but it's a long walk back along a ledge of grief. These boots must testify. A diamond ring is neither branding iron nor fencing wire. Don't ask why take by force what you can have by love. Despite your Spartan fist, there's no redress. So take the oxblood, thank the lady for her help, and yes, you'd like to wear them home. For 8 years wear them, staggered in between your goth phase, swing phase, punk, bohemian. They'll frisk you at the Guns N' Roses show, so tuck a can of mace inside the shaft. When trouble parks his Eldorado just to follow you on foot, remember this. Each arch contains an 18-gauge steel shank. And when the mud scab soles are wearing thin, well, get them fixed. For $20, they'll look as good as Lazarus. For 8 more years, wear them. In rain, and snow, and summer heat. Though late most afternoons, the light forgives, spills violet blue. One day you must admit, although the leather still looks plummy, half the outsole stitching is dissolved like catgut and the vamp is pulling free. Beyond repair, yet beautiful with brokenness. Retire them beneath the guest room bed. And in that kneeling, listen at the window to the swelling requiem of crickets. If you have done all this, then stand. At first, you'll feel no different. Yet the sun will toll within the copper sky, that barefoot hour when all your scorpions have turned to sand. And there's a line within the poem Oxblood that paraphrases a Native American proverb, "Why will you take by force what you may obtain by love?" And that's from a 1609 speech by Chief Powhatan, as recorded by John Smith. The next poem is called I Never Fell in Love with You. and it's for my husband. To fall in love implies a lack of choice, as if I were cartoonish, maladroit, and love an open manhole to avoid. To fall suggests a kind of loftiness, that I began in some exalted place, and not the eyrie of my loneliness. To fall, like rain, or tears, or mercury, a pawn of Cupid, or of gravity? No. With my grappling hook, I climbed precisely. To fall, kerplunk, is stumbling, imperfection. No, I would brave the hot tar of rejection to wear the ermine cloak of your affection. I built a trebuchet and aimed to sail beyond your moat, over your castle wall. I launched, I soared in love. I did not fall. Snow White's plea to the huntsman. Asleep, I shiver in a silken gown and wait for you to find me in the dark. Don't let me waken shackled to a crown, too drowsy to resist that royal mark. You saved me once and fooled the wicked queen who craved a lung and liver fricassee. Yet served a hoax, she licked her fingers clean. By sparing me your sword, you captured me. Let moonlight vigil lead you to my lips and prove your kiss will break this spell's embrace. The prickly arrows of your cheek eclipse affection from the smoothest princely face. Such knaves can plunder castles, trinkets, art, but only you can breach my fortressed heart. And that was the last poem from my forthcoming spring 2022 book, Oxblood. But before reading my final two poems, because later I know Katie and Chris are going to ask me what book I recommend, I will now read a short poem from the 2019 book Frozen Charlotte by Susan de Sola. She was a native New Yorker who lived in the Netherlands for many years. In October, she passed away after a short bout with cancer. She was only 59. And Susan was a warm person and a skilled and witty poet, both in formalism and in free verse. I like this little poem of hers called, well, I love so many of her poems, but tonight I'm going to read this little poem of hers about an object that we're all familiar with. And its poem is entitled ATM. Somehow it's sexual. The rim crotch high, the shuffling buttocks, the hands fumbling in secret. Gone the dainty dialogue, the date stamp in a little leathery book of records at set times. Now an onanism of cash, walls with mouths. And the final two poems I'll read are from my current manuscript in progress, shifting gears a little bit. This is called My Dirty Bedroom Secret. It wasn't always a taboo, but now is cause for shame. And oh, you know the thing I mean, and oh, it has a name. Our kinks should be addressed, why not? My husband didn't mind, whether I was all alone or we were intertwined. I'd like to praise it openly. It's healthy, not exotic. In my defense, it didn't used to be unpatriotic. Invented by a clown of theirs, conservatives would cheer. My friends are libs and libertines. It's their rebuke I fear. My money in the pockets of that mustached wacko guy. I cringe to think we nearly kissed democracy goodbye. Rest assured, I feel some guilt about this peccadillo. I don't know how I sleep at night on Mike Lindell's My Pillow. And the last poem I will read tonight is called Is This Your Cow? After 100 days learning German on Duolingo.com. Your cow is pretty. I like your shoes. Do you like me? I bring strawberries and wine. The garden is not beautiful. I eat the potato because I like potatoes. This vegetarian does not like me. Questions are great. Is it my turn? How many children do you have? How much wine do they drink? Are these your pants? Either yes or no. When is a man a man? Your oranges are big. Why is it so small? Is that a button? A bee! The man is not sad. He is never sad. He drinks a lot of beer. The man has a spider. No woman likes him. I like him, since he is paying for the food. I do not wear any clothes. I am not wearing anything. I am normal. I have many fans. I am drinking, and you are paying. The beer is weak. The bear is strong. You don't know the bear. I know him through a friend. The bear is wearing her dresses. The shoes do not fit. A bee! We are not men, all women. The girls are not sad. My tool, please. The women like the tools. That is not a toy. I do not know these people. Are these your fans? You are babies. We are playing without you. A bee! You are not funny. Nobody likes that. The cat is funny. He runs as soon as he sees you. You are weak. You are heavy. You are slow. You learn nothing. This bed is cold. The house has no roof. No, it is not easy. That is not a garden. Nobody plays. No one speaks. No one is good. And if he hears you, the enemy is weak. We do not see the enemy. We are running even though we are tired. We see the trees. We see the sun. As long as we are fast, we run. I am alive. I know that. Without you, I am nothing. It is a garden without flowers. The wind is cold. We have no bread. The sky is falling. Thank you.
Wow! Oh my God! Chris, did she not like rock the entire house? Not yes.
Out of the park.
Out of the park.
Okay.
Out of the park. Nicole, incredible, powerful, visceral, beautiful poetry. So powerful. And your reading style and delivery, I was captivated. I was riveted. I was like crying. I was laughing. I was just like spellbound by your vocabulary and turns of phrase. Just absolutely wonderful. What a treat that we all got to hear that tonight, and that it will be recorded forever and archived, that we'll get to enjoy it again if we want to.
Well, it's nice to have your, you're always so exuberant. But it's nice to hear your reactions, because when I'm looking at my poems on my screen, I don't see any faces. It's just like I'm in a room talking to myself. Well, I don't even see my own face, so
No, I mean, your delivery is so great, and then when you're looking at the screen, I mean, it's sort of like hypnotic, right? Because
Totally.
you're performing. I mean, you really are performing, and it's like watching, great acting.
I'm angry at myself because I pasted the wrong version of my dirty bedroom secret into the wonderful editor Melissa Balmain when she posted it on Poems of the Week for Light magazine. She made some really helpful, smart suggestions for edits, which I employed, but I pasted the wrong version.
Oh, I thought that pause was like a moment. I thought that
pause when I looked, the panic was like, that is not the stanza. What is that interloping stanza doing there?
Oh,
it
it worked though. Because I felt like you were acting a little faclet over your little.
Like, that's a little dramatic, even for a poet. Like, you dial back the drama, Nicole. No, it's just real life's of the poets. Like, we paste the wrong version in the thing. So yeah, that was not just your imagination. Like, is Nicole being like hella dramatic right now? No,
I loved it.
She's just saying to herself.
I thoroughly enjoyed that myself. So.
It was nothing short of absolute perfection. Such powerful pieces, and also such fabulous humor. I felt like it might be going in the My Pillow direction at some point, and I was like, yes. That's hilarious.
It would have been a terrible time for the video feed to cut out.
Oh God, no, I would have, right? That is so great. And I love that Duolingo poem. I've heard that before. It's so funny and yet so powerful at the same time. And you just have I mean, you're like, it's like you're breathing all of this, Nicole. And it's so awesome. And not only to read your poems, but to hear you read them. And I feel like, getting to hear you live is just so perfect, so wonderful. And we're so excited for your book. It's just such a treat to have you. And, later tonight, you gotta hop on Facebook and YouTube. Facebook is where most people are. You got just all the love you're getting in the comments right now.
Thank you. And it's an honor and a privilege to be here and to just be able to share. And I don't think I read a poem in person in like 2 years. I mean, I was in a classroom mid-March 2020, and I was like, oh, this is safe, right? If it weren't safe, they would say something. And then I think the next day it was like, boom, everything in the state.
Exactly.
So, and I remember that moment, like I so enjoyed reading the poem to the students and like talking to them and hearing their questions. And then it was just,
that's it. It's all over.
But you have like your wonderful FUMFA series, so.
Yes. Oh, it's absolutely wonderful. Thank you so much, Nicole. And I know you all have questions for Nicole, so you save them up for Q&A at 8 o'clock.
I cannot wait to see what Ken has in store for us.
I know. I'm pumped. Well, thank you so much, Nicole. And we will see you very soon.
Okay.
I want to know. I want to know if Nicole invited her gynecologist to watch tonight.
I hope so. Gynecologist. Oh no. Well, hopefully we have many friends of both Nicole and Ken in our audience right now. But we need to get into Ken's reading. We need to welcome Ken. What an awesome reading from Nicole. Welcome, Ken.
Hi.
We are so thrilled to have you.
Thank you. It's great to be here.
Yes.
I love that big clock behind you there. It's like,
I know.
Yeah. I haven't set it ahead yet, actually. So.
And we can see that lovely drum set behind you. Those of you who have been looking at the ads, that is his bio picture location. I love that.
Yeah, I could do a solo, but I'm not sure how that would come through. But
maybe before we finish with the Q&A, that would be a treat.
A little 20-minute, Inagata Davida kind of solo. Anyway, let's read Ken's bio, and I'll do that. And Ken is the author of Balance Act and The Tragedy in My Neighborhood. He has released 4 collections of original music, and he makes radio fiction and documentary pieces, many of which have aired on public radio affiliates around the US and on the BBC. He directs the creative writing program at Quinnipiac University. You can get more info at his website, which is called thebenjisection.com, Benji, B-E-N-G, J-Y, section.com/Ken Cormier. And take it away, Ken.
Oh, thanks. All right, here goes. I'm just going to read a bunch of short pieces that are new and unpublished. Some of them actually appeared in journals, but for the most part, they're unpublished. So yeah, here goes. First one's called Baskets. We went to the basket place, the place where the basket men made the baskets and where the basket women made the baskets and where the basket children stayed inside the baskets until they were asked to come out. And when they did come out, they smiled at us and invited us into their baskets. And we went inside and were surprised to find out how much room there was and how many things were stored inside there and how many blankets and lotions and powders and pillows and wooden blocks and stacking toys and sweet potatoes and driver's licenses and stomach linings and plastic photo holders and desk lamps and small dogs and grumpy men and stoic women and laundry detergents and candy dispensers and light bulbs and alarm clocks and space heaters and maple syrup bottles and fancy glass carafes and ceramic birds and air filters and carbon monoxide detectors and books about bunnies and rental agreements and paper clips and staple removers and silicone breast implants and greeting cards and annual reports and grant applications and song lyrics and silver hoop earrings and poached eggs and whiteout and empty antifreeze containers and cigarette holders and action figures and lemonade stands and pasta makers and ice cream machines and industrial oven catalogs and sunglasses and slotted spoons and so many dollar bills and piles of nickels, quarters, and dimes. And when we finally said goodbye and left the baskets and went back to our own homes and our old daily routines, the world felt more drab than usual, more gray and monotonous. It was harder to function, to motivate ourselves to wake up in the morning and go to work, eat our meals, and then go to sleep. We kept thinking of the baskets where the babies lived, the baskets that were made by the men and women. We wanted to crawl back into that basket world and hide away from everything we had made of ourselves, from all the ideas we had built up around ourselves. We wanted to sink back into all that stuff. We wanted the babies to show us how. We wanted the babies to smile at us and tell us it was okay to stay. But deep down, we knew that we couldn't. In fact, we had lost track of where the baskets even were, and we couldn't find the basket men or the basket women. The only baskets we could find were the empty ones that lined the shelves of our pantries or that were stuffed into cardboard boxes in the corners of our basements. And most of these were bent and broken, frayed at the edges, hardly worth keeping. This next one, I think I'm calling it The Fires the Animals Made. It's sometimes I like to write stories that are metered. So this is usually after reading a lot of Dr. Seuss, I get in the mood to write metered stories. So this is pretty much anapestic throughout. We went into town on the 5th of July, and the weather was better than we could remember. The flowers were bouncing, the trees were careening, the streets were all coated with pink lemonade. Esther was there, and she said to take care because squirrels and deer and raccoons and an elk were seen gathering wood and igniting large fires on the outskirts of town. And the mayor suspected that one of these species had mastered the art of combustion somehow and was now teaching others the ways of the blaze. And he hoped that this wouldn't become a big problem. He wanted to know if we'd be volunteers for the fire brigade. We all said okay. Esther confessed that she'd been losing sleep. She thought she had seen a young male Wolverine with a packet of matches and some kerosene that he dragged from behind the old general store. They gave us some helmets and big heavy boots and directed us up to the top of a tower so we could keep watch. And they brought us some snacks and a pack of dried meat and some water and cupcakes and fresh tangerines, and we had us a feast. And we guarded the town, and at night we could see little pinpoints of light popping up in the distance beyond the big pond and on top of the hills at the edge of the woods. And it seemed so unreal that the animals now, like the humans, had figured out how to make fire. We thought it was weird, but we didn't feel scared. The mayor came up to see how we were doing and asked us if he could have some of the snacks. We told him he could, and he sat with some peanuts and asked if we'd ever gone fishing before. We said that we had, and he said he was glad because later that week he was planning on going, and if we weren't busy, he'd like us to join him. We said that we couldn't. We had to get going first thing in the morning. The mayor said thank you for all we had done, and he left with a smile. We stayed up all night and had such a good time, and we'll always remember the night that we spent on the tower observing the fires the animals made. This next one's called The Long Haul, and its first line is taken, it's like a prompt that Raymond Carver gives in his essay on writing. The line is, I was running the vacuum cleaner when the telephone rang. So this is the long haul. I was running the vacuum cleaner when the telephone rang. The cat leapt off the sofa and disappeared under the recliner. I hate when he does that because I read somewhere that cats and other small pets can tend to hide in recliners and then get crushed and killed by unsuspecting people who sit down and lean back into the recline position. They must do it with gusto, I guess, so determined to recline that they just push through the resistance, ignore the little squeaks and squawks from underneath, and recline the hell out of that thing until it snaps into place. Later, I guess they realize what they've done and they cry into their sandwiches for the next few weeks until they finally replace their deceased little kitty with a new one. And maybe they even consider getting rid of the offending recliner or moving it into the basement at least. The phone kept ringing, but I didn't pay any attention to it. I knew who it was, and I didn't have any interest in speaking with that low-life son of a bitch. It's funny, that's what my mom always called him when we were kids, and somewhere along the way, I guess I just internalized it and started using it myself. I never called him that when I was a kid. In fact, I used to try and defend him when my mom would go on and on about how he never paid attention to us or supported us, and how he ran around with women like Bonnie Ratner down the street or Edna Vincent, one of the receptionists down at the car dealership where he worked for a few months. Back when I was a kid, I still wanted to believe in him. I liked the smell of his stale breath and the feel of his worn leather jacket. I loved the way he rolled up his sleeves of his t-shirt to the tops of his shoulders, the way he told us that we were lucky little shits, the way he sang to us over the phone. I always wanted to be in his car, though our mother hardly ever let us go anywhere with him. The phone kept ringing even after I had finished vacuuming the living room. Everything looked good. I had gone through all the clutter, thrown away all the piles of papers and junk mail, emptied the ashtrays, and wiped all the sweat rings and sticky spots from the coffee table. When the ringing finally stopped, the cat came back out and sat with me on the sofa. I pet her little head and she purred at me. She was so small, I thought, and I wondered if I'd be able to take care of her for the long haul. This one's called Literacy. It's like a dialogue. She says, "Why so soon?" He says, "My son has a volleyball game tonight." She says, "At the school?" He says, "Yes, of course." She says, "It all sounds so final." He says, "Well, they've been planning it for months." She says, "How old is your son now?" He says, 7 or 8. She says, "You don't know his age?" He says, "No one is any one age at any one time." She says, "Do you know your own age?" He says, "When I was born, people didn't keep records." She says, "That's what they all say." He says, "Are you still planning on making all of those hospitality baskets for the literacy fundraiser?" She says, "They're all finished." He says, "You sound hesitant." She says, "Do I?" He says, "It wasn't what you said, it was the tone of your voice." She says, "Well, it's true that I have my doubts." He says, "What doubts?" She says, "I just can't understand how fundraising will help literacy." He says, "Well, don't they need to buy books and hire teachers?" She says, "Do you think that's what it is?" He says, "I wouldn't know." She says, do you think literacy is important? I mean, really essential for everyone? He says, I hadn't considered it. My assumption is that it is. But now that you mention it, I haven't really thought about it enough to have an informed opinion. She says, would you like to do some research? He says, yes, I believe I would like to do some research. She says, would you like me to chat with you while you conduct your research? He says, yes, that sounds fine. She says, what shall we talk about? He says, how about the weather? She says, oh, yes, I saw on the news today that the summer sun is more dangerous now than ever. He says, it's a shame that nature always seems to want to kill us in one way or another. She says, is that your viewpoint on nature? He says, I am simply trying to make conversation while I conduct my research. She says, oh, yes, forgive me. He says, you are forgiven. That's literacy. This is called Actualities. It's sort of loosely based on a period of my life when I was walking around with a microphone and recording practically everything I was doing every day. Actualities. Music school hallway, practice rooms all around, ahead, behind, above, below. Head full of headphones, hands full of microphone and audio recorder, sneakers too dead to mention. Haven't eaten since this morning. I want to stretch out and chew that waxy saxophone. Piano scales and operatic wails kiss and caress. Don't walk sign, bleeps bleeding out in front from the outside. My arm is itchy, but I hold it straight out. Suddenly, I am a dinner club hostess with a plastic jacket, a coat check associate ready to strangle all fascists. These knees of mine hold up nicely as I squat like Carlton Fisk in the corner near the organ room. My forehead is a silky scarf. My eyes move wildly beneath closed lids, and now I'm with my two little boys on a grassy path at the edge of a marsh. They sift through pine needles around tree trunks, squeal to find owl pellets, stuff bird bones into plastic bags. I loom over the scene with extended arm, worried that the breeze from Long Island Sound will ruin the recording. Lying on my back in the dark, I whisper nonsense into a portable cassette machine. I whisper 17 and tremulous trimmer and keep me in the think tank. I begin with opinions and work toward retractions. Language flattens, shivers, and willows in my ever-wet mouth. My teeth beat the clean beat. Years prior, driving a stick shift in Michigan, all four windows open, I loudly label the flora and fauna, disparage the sores in my mouth, lament the love I am due to lose in 9 years' time, ululate for unsuspecting pedestrians. In the night driveway, I capture 2 solid minutes of real weeping, fingernails tearing at beaded seat covers, legs spasming to the music of tantrum, total vocal tract failure, gnashing of face, eardrums fat and heavy, ever bubbling sinus. Then it ends with the complete quiet of a slow, sad walk to a back door from the past. All right, that's Actualities. This next one's called Minutes. The pinball game is misbehaving on the screen. The flippers stretch and bend. The ball multiplies into several balls. The bumpers dance and spark. I am not aware that I am touching the keyboard. I turn away from the screen and make a noise at Van. He tells me I am normal. He tells me I am fine. I ask him a question, but it's not words, just a noise. He says nothing is unusual. He says he doesn't notice anything. Now I turn to Macy, who is reclining on a beanbag chair and staring at the ceiling. Suddenly, I understand that time operates as an endless series of pulses, and that these pulses can be visualized as a forward-moving succession of peaks and valleys, and that this unceasing motion is also somehow related to a pendulum swinging between light and dark, but that the forward motion of the peaks and valleys in no way implies that time moves forward, and that the oscillation between light and dark does not suggest anything in particular about the nature of time. I want to tell Macy what I now understand so clearly, but when I speak to her, it's just a noise. She sits up and looks at me. She stands and reaches for my hand. She says she agrees with me. She says it again, that she agrees with me. And then she says we should go. I nod yes and stand up. In the hall, we push our way clumsily through the fluorescent light. We find the stairwell. I slip and fall on my back. There are some words exchanged. Now we are outside. It's dark. Macy says she agrees with me that we should crawl under the hedges. Van is here and I am leaning on his shoulder. Macy says she agrees with me that we need to return to the places we came from. We need to haunt our rooms, she says, like ghosts. I collapse once on the sidewalk, but Van picks me up and we keep walking. I tell Van I appreciate his help and I ask him if he thinks I am crying, but it's not words that come out of my mouth. Van says I'm fine. Nothing is out of the ordinary. Then Macy is gone. Now I am standing in a bathroom stall, feeling sad about my parents. Now I am jogging around gravestones. I cover myself with a blanket and listen to my teeth. On a street corner, I remind myself not to step in front of a moving car. Later, in Macy's room, I stare at her digital clock. Macy asks if I agree that we are ghosts. I say yes, but it's just a noise. Macy says if we fall asleep, we'll die. I keep staring at the clock. The minute does not change. The minute never switches. The minutes do not move forward. That one's called Minutes. All right. This one's called Celebrity, and it's about PowerPoint mainly. Celebrity. I make a PowerPoint presentation and send it to my friend Abe. He says it is radical and that I should present it in public. I book a 2-hour block on a Friday evening at the performance space across from the Liquidators Arena. The invitation I make includes an image of 2 cartoon pilgrims making out at the beach. I foot the bill for an open bar. I prepare by clicking through my slides and reading the text over and over. I buy a new suit. I buy some prescription pills from my friend Nathan. I buy some yellow sunglasses, which I know will help with depth perception and visual contrast. The evening of the presentation arrives and I walk into the space so I can be alone with my thoughts. I keep my flash drive in the inside pocket of my new suit. When I arrive, the place is buzzing with people. I take photos of everyone and speak in silly voices. I go backstage and rehearse my presentation while Abe, who has agreed to be stage manager, drinks bourbon and mumbles into the mic on his headset. Eventually, the lights go down and the crowd quiets to a whisper. I step out onto the stage and give my presentation. The slides and the text go very well. All the laugh lines work. The sad part makes everyone cry. The startling part makes everyone jump out of their seats. At the very end of the presentation, I have included a near subsonic thumping that is designed to relax the audience, and the audience becomes very relaxed. They clap politely and file out of the space in an orderly fashion. The next morning, all of the newspapers run rave reviews of my presentation. The phone begins to ring off the hook. I receive invitations to several prestigious conferences. Everyone wants to see more of my presentations. At first, I am elated, but then I begin to feel nervous. I have only the one presentation. What if I can't think of another idea? I sit at my desk and stare into the screen. I begin to type some bullet points. I find images to include as backgrounds. I embed audio and video clips. Everything will be fine, I tell myself. Everything will be fine. All right. PowerPoint. Let's see. Yeah, I got time for a few more here. This one's called Secondary. The protagonist cannot overcome the obstacles that he encounters. The protagonist is a wretched beast, a self-serving bastard, an embarrassment to all secondary characters he encounters. The primary secondary character no longer speaks to the protagonist, and when the story opens, she is staring at herself in the medicine cabinet mirror, examining her twitching eyelid and wondering why everything she touches turns to shit. She is crying in a parked car now, and later she is having an ice cream with her sister and niece. The primary secondary character's sister is a wildly attractive woman with an athletic build and an enviable head of thick, wavy, silky black hair. She makes all of her own jewelry. She wears clunky shoes, but somehow makes it seem elegant. She says the right things. She is good at being both meaningful and meaningless. The primary secondary character looks at her and becomes angry. Why must she envy her sister always? Why must this woman, who used to be her awkward little sister, who used to have trouble with a speech impediment, who used to cry when the lights went out at bedtime, who used to stuff herself with candy corn until she was sick in the bathroom, why must this woman cause her to hate herself so profoundly? The primary secondary character tries to shift her focus onto her niece, whose face is becoming covered in chocolate ice cream, whose shirt is stained with mustard, whose little body is chubbier than it ought to be, whose voice is a squeal, whose demeanor is not charming, whose intellect seems underdeveloped for her age. It makes the primary secondary character feel better to know that her niece is shaping up to be a disappointment. It makes her feel better to look around and pick out people who seem hopeless or at least struggling. That evening, the primary secondary character is taking a walk downtown when she happens to see the repulsive protagonist exiting Vito's Pizza with a woman on his arm. He throws his head back and laughs, revealing a mouthful of brown teeth, which causes the primary secondary character to wince and almost lose her footing on the sidewalk. Quickly, the primary secondary character ducks into a stationery shop. She rifles through racks of permanent markers until she is sure the protagonist has disappeared around the corner. This is not her scene, she thinks. The protagonist has no right to expect a confrontation in front of Vito's Pizza, the very spot where they met all those years ago, where they first proclaimed their love for each other, where they gossiped with each other and laughed, where they eventually fought and cried and swore that they would never see each other again. After a few more minutes, the primary secondary character slips out of the shop, ducks into a cab, and disappears into the night. That's secondary. All right. This is called, this is another metered story. It's called Government. My foot was awake, but my arm was asleep, so I called the police, and I told them my address and asked them to speed to my house and massage me a bit. But it's been several hours. I doubt that they're coming. It's funny the way we pay taxes but never get services, never the things that we want or we crave. For example, I'd like for the mayor to give me a shave, and I want the assessor to alter my dresser, and it wouldn't be bad if an alderman came to my house once a week to help out with the chores and to straighten my drawers. The thing about government, so I've been told, is that government strokes the wrong folks, and it stuffs the wrong muffins and pats the wrong backs, and it shakes the wrong hands, and it buys the wrong guys. And if you are like me and you work until 3 and you pay all your rent and you turn down the heat and you cook all your sausages down with the peppers and suffer from ulcers all over your gums and fall into deep melancholic depressions whenever the weather is less than ideal, but you wake up each morning and sleep every night with the steady conviction that you know what's right, and that even if some of the work that you do is at best mediocre and lacking in effort, you still are a person who occupies space and who breathes in the air and who grapples with fate. And the government ought to be there for you, fondle and care for you, knock on your door and find out what's the matter. Then quickly proceed to deliver the goods without any regard for the cost or logistics. And you might insist that it's unrealistic, but that's only because you've been trained to believe that the government hasn't the power, the time, or the cash to provide for the people it governs. It only has money for sculptures and fountains and opulent buildings and galas and limos and profligate lunches and gold-plated staplers and rollerball pens. And there's nothing left over to spend on improving the lives of anonymous folks who can barely survive as it is. So no wonder those cops didn't come to massage me. No wonder the bridges and sidewalks are crumbling. No wonder the towns are all dirty and dreary. No wonder the masses just all sit at home and stay glued to the tube and plug into their phones, because everything that used to bring us together in our local towns and municipal centers has all been expunged and erased from the budget. So all I can do is to rub my own arm and to prod it awake so that I can get on the computer and visit the government site and confirm that I'm current on all of my taxes. I'd rather be safe than be sorry. And now that I think of it, I'd better call the police back and tell them I'm fine and to not waste their time. All right, I'll end there on that political statement.
I love that political statement. I'm behind that 100%.
I just want a massage from the police sometimes.
You should at least be able to get that for what we're paying. Again, what an absolute delight it was to hear your reading. It just sort of flew by, like similarly, but in a different way from Nicole. Just like totally captivated, totally entertained. Just this very fluid, almost I dare I say poetry-like flow of imagery and associations. I'm the poet half of this show, so Chris is going to tease me.
Oh, no, agree.
I loved it. And, I'm always quoting Charles Rafferty, who I believe is your, you may know, about that wonderful blurred line kind of between the two that I feel that I hear in your pieces. Anyways, they were just so great and so full of images and so full of all these different stories and statements and, quirky and hilarious moments, as well as, like gently poignant ones. It's just awesome, Ken.
Thank you.
Oh yeah, we're definitely going to talk about some of that too, because I have some questions about that, and well, let's bring Nicole back up here. We talk about the serendipity of pairings.
Yes.
We have we pair people, and sometimes it's just who's available when, and what have you, and there's always some kind of
serendipitous connection, whether we kind of anticipate that or not.
Right, we've got some formalist poetry going on, and then with fiction with meter.
How cool is that?
So there's this kind of really interesting. Well, we'll talk about it more, but interesting takes on fiction. The distant. The protagonist and the secondary.
Oh,
things like that. There's not even names in that story, and yet somehow.
And it's too good. That's just so good. It's so good, and that just adds to the delightful, humor of what's going on there. So good, and in such a short little space too. So many journeys, so many.
I think there are moments in life. I remember thinking about how sometimes there's these panic moments where you suddenly suspect that you're not the protagonist, maybe in your own life. And you think, well, wait a minute, is this my story or what's happening?
Right.
Got me thinking about these different characters.
Fortunately, as you point out, sometimes the supporting character is way more interesting than the protagonist. So
yeah.
It's a supporting character that everybody remembers, and you get the supporting actor Oscar.
Right.
No one will remember the best actor 10 years from now, but that supporting actor. That's our hope anyway.
Love it.
Great character roles.
Yeah.
Exactly. Or villain.
Character roles.
That's it.
They're the most fun.
For sure.
Can we just give a round of applause one more time to Nicole Caruso Garcia and Ken Cormier? Just incredible readings by both of you this evening. What a richness, that we were just dwelling in for the last hour. And I can't wait to ask them questions. So I know that our audience is typing in their questions as we speak. Get typing, audience. But we need to get started with our famous first question.
We're infamous.
Take it away, Chris.
Infamous, depending on how you look at it.
Infamous, true.
We'll start with Nicole. It's a simple question, which doesn't mean it's easy, but how has being a writer changed your life?
I think it really changed me as a reader. So
Mm.
now it's just, once I started writing, it became impossible to read a book quickly.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, I was never a fast reader anyway, but it's like I feel like I'm kind of split into two people when I read, because I'm reading as the audience, as the reader receiving the information, but I'm also reading as a writer. Like, you ever see that show Heroes, where the characters like absorb other character superpowers? I feel like that's what I want to do as I go through a book. I'm kind of like trying to sweep. I identify all the excellent skills and things that that writer's doing, and just sweep it all up and think, okay, I'm just gonna put that in here now and try to use
Right.
that. So
Right.
I'm always looking at craft when I'm reading, and it that, you know, for better or for worse, it's that's one way that it's changed me.
Do you
That's
find
awesome.
is
And,
it
and
hard?
in finding like awesome people in the writing community. So many of my friends um, are poets, and you know, or you know, fiction writers or whatnot, but a lot of poets. But just being in a community where you feel like these are my people, and these people are out
Yes.
here all along, and I didn't really know about them existing until I got more into writing. So it's enriched. It's really enriched my life.
Absolutely. What about you, Ken?
Ken,
Oh, it's funny. I don't know. I think writing has definitely shaped my life. I just always remember wanting to write. I remember being in an elementary school project where I was competing with one of my best friends to write the longest story, and you know, it just was it always seemed to be a thing that I gravitated toward. So I don't know. It just, yeah, ever since I was a kid, it has just always put me into pairings or groups of people, and you know, wrote music. And a lot of my best friends I'm still in touch with today. Since high school, we were all, you know, playing
Oh,
music and writing music, and it just has always been a kind of like an expectation that I'd be trying to work on composing something, whether it's a poem or a story or a
nice.
song or whatever. So yeah, I don't know. I don't know that it ever changed, because it was just always
Kind of who
it's
you
always there.
are.
Yeah.
Which always something you always wanted to do, and that pushed you forward towards these different goals and activities.
Yeah.
We often have an answer like this, where it's like, how did it change my life? It like is my life in so many ways.
was I born? I was born with, you know, a pen in my hand.
Yeah.
Well, some people are like that, and some people come to it a little later. Like for me, I didn't like English in high school, and now the joke is really on me. So, I mean, it was my least favorite subject. I was like, what class can I take so I'm not going to have to write anything really long or read anything really long? I know, poetry. And then I met Kim Richford, and it just hit me at the right time in my life. And I think people can see from the types of poems I write. Like, I write about some pretty serious subjects, so
Totally.
writing has enabled me to have a voice. Now it's just one voice, but to be able to put on paper and say things that are hard to say in any way other than poetry, or
Mhm.
or you know, some kind of art. Where do those things live unless you pull them out and have somewhere to put them?
Right.
It's I don't know what I would do if I didn't have that. Like those things that it's kind of like the book is kind of like a snake skin that gets shed.
Right.
Like there's this, but it's over here, and that's
Mm.
its own separate thing.
Absolutely. It's like this outlet, but it's also this way that you get to see it and kind of reflect on it as well. It's like this healing process, and a way for you to kind of create something, you know, in a way, something new out of it. I love those heavier poems that I hear from you, because not only do I feel them, but they in as heavy and as painful as they are, there is a catharsis in the reading. And I love this line in your poem about Oxblood, where I think you said and in this kneeling listen, as you're like putting the boots under the bed. And I was like, oh, you know, really, we talk about like being a poet, just like feeling everything. But and that's what it's kind of like when you write a poem, when you share a poem, when it's published out there, like, and when you see it there, like, respect what that has done for you. And I just love that.
Well, and they're also kind of like points on a timeline, because it's easy to pick up a book and think, okay, well, like this is the speaker or this writer and all these things. But it's really like there are so many points on a timeline that we inhabit, and what's true at a certain moment may not be true anymore or feel true later on. But if you write it down, you can then go back and be like, oh, look at the difference between that and this other poem, both of which felt authentic when you wrote them, but they're miles apart,
right?
But it's like documenting. It's like a weird, funky form of journalism, kind of. It's like these things are document, kind of like a documentary. And I argue with the poems, like how can this be true? Well, it's true when you said it. We wrote it. Now, a certain days poems feel truer than others, and But.
Sure. Nicole, I have a question for you, and I want to pose it like a same thing to Ken too, but using different examples. But the idea of you being able to say things through poetry, then how does the formalist poetry or something like the 11 Reasons poem, right, where it's kind of a list, do you find that aids you, helps you to say things?
Oh my gosh, yes. 1,000,000,000%. Yes. I mean, it's, and I've heard numerous poets talk about this. I think, Rina P. Espaillat has talked about it. Marilyn Nelson's talked about it. It's like a formalist poem is a safe space. It's a very strong box to put dangerous things in.
Right.
And you can break the form, like you can kick out the wall of the box and make a variation. But if it were not for formalist poetry, there's no way I could have written some of these things, because
that's awesome.
The forms were challenging, but I'd rather like distract myself with the challenge of the form.
Yeah.
Sometimes it can make you forget how challenging the actual like material is.
Yes.
I distract myself by making this Sistina when I'm let me struggle against the form instead of sort of struggling against the content. But you have that safe space, like, oh, this is, and I don't even know what the form's going to be initially necessarily. Sometimes I'm like, oh, this is feeling like triplets, or this is feeling like a sonnet, or I thought it was a sonnet and it's a longer terza rima. But needing that safety, that structure, it's like I need the fence. Like something about writing free verse is so terrifying. Not that I haven't written it, but it can be so terrifying. Like, you're just giving me all of the freedom in the world. Like, hell,
too much.
No.
Too much freedom.
I need the box. I need something, whether it's a list or even an invented form. Like there's a poem in the book that has the text, and some of it's like just has a line through it. So like you read it and then you read the thing after.
Yes.
So absolutely form. And I know some students like who are initially learning poetry, they really push back. They're like, well, I want all the freedom in the world. I'm like, well, you might feel differently eventually.
Right.
But form has been my salvation. Absolutely.
Right.
And I love
syllabic poems were the gateway to that. Like, just writing in a set number of syllables per line, and then maybe it's sonnet, maybe Vilna.
So Ken, you're writing stories.
Yes.
Meter, right? So you have this built-in form, but even the ones that aren't in meter, like the story, with the no names, right? The protagonist and the secondary support. I can't remember the secondary. Primary. I get whatever.
Primary, secondary. Yeah, right.
Right. I mean, but those stories have a real punch to them.
Yes.
Even though you're imposing this distance on it, and the Carver prompt, right, which is like the phone's ringing,
Yeah.
And like buried in there, and very powerfully, is this story about a father, right, and the son and everything. But it's surrounded by this structure that feels safe, maybe to you.
Mm.
I don't know, but it's kind of a kick in the gut to the reader. So I mean, how much do you think about that when you're writing? Are you saying, well, I'm gonna erect this barricade around the difficult part of this through some kind of form, or do you just shoot them out?
It's funny. Nicole mentioned Marilyn Nelson. I'm a huge Marilyn Nelson fan, and I made a recording with her at some point years ago, and I still play this little bit for my students where she talks about writing in form. It just seemed like, what else would you do? Like, because she has a thing you want to say, but since language is your medium, she described it as like putting the language into a beautiful container, and she compared it to some either, I think it was like a vase or some this image of shaping the language, and that to her was the whole point, right? If you're going to be using language to say something, then let's use that medium, which I think is really compelling. I grew up playing snare drum in a fife and drum corps, like an ancient fife and drum corps. My dad was a drummer, and his dad was the director. My parents met in the drum corps, so we just lived and breathed this stuff. And from the age of 7, I was learning intricate rhythmic rudiments,
Cool.
sight reading complex music. And I would literally walk around with rhythms, kind of, still to this day,
You
chattering
can
my teeth.
hear that in your pieces too.
Yeah, definitely.
And so when I write, whether it's a poem or a song or a story, I just can't turn away from how everything sounds, how the language sounds. It raises some interesting stuff, because I think Nicole's poems are so beautifully written and so well performed. The readings, and I relate to the performative aspect of the work that I write and read as well. And I've been struggling lately to write a little bit more autobiographically. I've got some ideas about some stories I want to tell. And I think sometimes, I ride this balance between getting really caught up in the sound to the point where I really do want to just sort of abandon what I'm saying,
Right.
and just plug words into rhythms, because it's just really interesting to me. And I have several pieces that are completely nonsensical, but it is, how can I bring that back into the realm of when I really want to tell a story that's maybe difficult, or that's recounting something that happened to me. And so yeah, it's but I don't think I can ever let go of whatever story I tell, just using those rhythms that are constantly sort of
and you shouldn't let go of that. That is so that is such an excellent style, and I think it would be fascinating to see how that aspect of your voice and your writing kind of moves into that territory of becoming more personal, or a little bit darker, or more intense, or based on some kind of biographical or more factual situation. I'd be fascinated to read that, because in the various pieces that you shared this evening, the images are so rich, and you can feel this rhythmic bouncing, this musical kind of movement between these different images and characters that really resonate together, and that's really exciting to me, and that I'm dying to ask about. I know Chris is gonna laugh at me, but Dan, do you see some of these shorter pieces as blurring a line, perhaps, between like these quicker fictional pieces and like a prose poetry, because it feels so associative sometimes, and so musical, that I kind of feel that it does. How do you feel about that?
Yeah, I mean, I was always the kind of writer that would show up to. I did a lot of readings, early on, especially. I always wanted to be performing, so
Awesome.
you'd hear it was a poetry night, but I'd bring fiction and songs and poems, or I'd hear it was fiction reading, and I'd bring songs and poems and stories. Like the genre stuff, I always felt like it was all mixed up for me
Yes.
anyway.
Cool.
So like Russell Edson is I love Russell Edson, who is kind of, in some ways a godfather of the prose poem in America. Just drove by his house. He's been passed away now since 2014, I think, but drove by his house in Darien, and just, for me, he's one of those people I would just sit across the street and look at his house for not so long that I draw attention to myself, but just enough to think about him. And he's, his books have been published. People call his work short stories. They call his work prose poems. Sometimes they don't really say what his work is, because I think they try to avoid saying, so yeah, I like that territory. I like that territory where you don't quite know what it is exactly.
I like that. I like that too. And I like how it is kind of taking some of the most magical and exciting and interesting bits of both genres in the blending. I love that. I have a question for both of you before our famous last double question. Both of you are teachers, instructors, professors, and I am really interested to know, how has teaching, being a teacher, preparing lessons, looking at language as a teacher, how has that influenced or affected your writing? And Nicole, and then Ken.
Well, you certainly you certainly have more understanding and empathy for the students when they have, let's say, deadlines. When you're in a writing group and you think, oh God, that snuck up on me. I have writing due tomorrow for group, and have I been procrastinating, or have I just been incubating this idea?
Totally.
So I think, like, I think I'm in the same shoe. Same.
Imagine if one of your high school students said, "I'm just incubating." You would want to understand that, but
people say like, "Oh, I'm procrastinating," but really, like, as a writer, you're always kind of incubating ideas. You're taking out the trash, you're brushing your teeth, washing dishes, and the ideas are in your head. It's not like you're writing as soon as you just get to the get to your computer and write.
That's right.
But in terms of, let's say, showing vulnerability as a writer during the drafting process, let's say showing a work in progress and saying, here's something I'm working on, and like, we're looking at work you're working on, and this is what the poem used to be, and here's an early draft, and here's what it became, and just showing them that I'm a writer too, and
nice
stuff like that.
That's great.
Yeah. For me, I don't know if it's influenced my writing so much as I've just felt so lucky that when I am at work, that a lot of what I do is I get to spend my time reading drafts of works by young writers who are, varying degrees of interest, varying levels of interest, and some get really excited, and some are just trying things out, and doing workshop groups with some of these students for the first time. They've never done anything like this. And it's a constantly sort of energizing process to just read new sets of stories, another new set of stories, another set. And so that, I think, is just, it makes me, when I do sit down to write myself, it feels like it all works in harmony, which I think is, I've worked so many jobs before I went back into academia, and I'd worked a lot outside of my work hours and late nights, and my work didn't connect with that, and that was fine. But when it does, it's just it's pretty astounding.
That's awesome. That's wonderful, wonderful, Ken. And so glad to hear those. As a teacher myself, it's interesting to see how it both like sort of does and doesn't, connect. But whenever you're working with students and reading their writing and working with language, there's so much to observe. Especially what you're both saying is that you're kind of constantly connected to this world of writing, and like what you said, Nicole, about the the revision process. You're when it's outside of yourself and you're seeing someone else going through that and you're encouraging them with your own process.
Well,
That
one
is
of the most interesting things for me was like I loved working one-on-one with a student, looking at drafts and having them talk about their writing. Like, what is it that you're trying to do here? Like, let's work through that. Because sometimes they'll tell you verbally what they're trying to do, and you're saying, well, that's awesome, but it's not
Yeah,
on the page.
it's
Like,
not here.
the idea that you're telling me is fantastic, but you didn't write that down. So
Exactly.
like it's like the magician with the scarves, like you're trying to pull all the scarves out of the sleeve. But I love talking to them one-on-one because once they get comfortable with talking about the writing, they will figure out, they will talk themselves through the process and what they what they actually are trying to achieve.
Mhm.
And I love to hear them talk about that.
That's awesome.
It's just inspiring, right? To meet young people who even want to write something beyond a tweet.
I
Or
always tell them this is human beings at their best. When we're bringing in creative work and sharing it with each other and trying to make it
Mhm.
better. It's like if everybody was doing this worldwide, we'd have like a really great existence.
I completely agree, Ken.
All the creative stuff gets sifted down the priority list, but to me, this is the important stuff.
so true.
Yes. If only we were spending all of these bazillions of dollars on creativity and and creative programs and people weren't drawn to violence and war and all these terrible things, we could have who knows what the world could be.
I have a little button that I wear that says "Books, not bombs." So, well, okay, that's it. That's really
That's what we need. That's what we need.
Yeah.
anyway, especially right now. Anyway,
We need our famous last double question. I have like about 1 million more questions for both of you.
oh, I
So
know.
this is like
We
we're
could go all
coming
night.
to our ending
I'll
time.
be here as long
sweetheart.
as you want. I live here, so I don't have to be anywhere.
We'll just have to have you guys both back again very, very soon.
Yeah. So yeah, well, Nicole beat us to part of this question, but she can right
She knew.
expound on that a little bit more. But the first part of the question,
Charlotte by Susan DeSola.
first part of the question though, is, pearl of wisdom for the young writers that we've just been talking about. Like one bit of writerly wisdom, and then you can show us the book again, and maybe another book too, off the top of your head. So Nicole, go ahead.
I'd say a pearl of wisdom that I can't tell writers how to be successful or how to be happy, but one pearl of wisdom I have in terms of how to not be miserable is based on what I've seen all over social media is let us as writers just let rejection completely slide off of us.
Yeah.
As if we're made of Teflon. Don't think about any rejection of your poem, your story, wherever, beyond just the time it takes to just log it in a book, and that's it. Because when your pieces are rejected, you could either say, well, I have been rejected, or just like I'm on the path to acceptance. And
Right.
What's more true is I'm on the path to acceptance. Like, how many rejections do you have to get before you get something accepted? And to be happy or not miserable, I'd say let's just do our best work.
Yes.
Take your ego, put it out in the backyard in the doghouse, chain it to a post, and come back in the house, make yourself some coffee, and just bow down and serve the poem. That is what you do to be happy. Like, there's no place for the ego. That's just gonna be a thing out in the back that if you tell that thing in the doghouse that you got a rejection, it's gonna start acting up. So you just have to bow down, do everything in service of the poem, do your best work, and that's what makes you feel like you're authentic and you have, you're acting with integrity. you're doing your best work, and you, yes, you do try to send it out and share it, or you're reading it in open mics or whatever. But I see a lot of people who are getting very fixated on rejection, and they're making themselves utterly miserable. And I don't know, maybe it's just the way I grew up, but my dad would always say, if we were disappointed by something, would be like, well, you better get used to it. There's always someone better off than you, and there's always someone worse off than you. So, and he wouldn't let us sit around and mope about it. It was like, well, I suppose we get used to it. And he would just like walk into the other room. So that was really instilled into me. Like, yes, and I'm not saying that rejection, never hurts. When I first sent out my manuscript to the very first publisher and it got rejected, it was like, oh man. And after that, like then it was just like, okay, I got it out of my system.
It's just a matter of time. It's just a matter of time.
And you just move on. But because and social media, I think, makes it worse, because if you're friends with tons of writers, every single day there's someone having an acceptance
Announcements. Yeah.
I mean, it's they're living their best life out there. They're like, look at all this great stuff, and you can be so happy for them. But you're outnumbered. There are hundreds of them, and there's only one of you. You're not going to get acceptance every single day, so you can't compare yourself to other people. All you can do is be happy for your friends and your POBIZ, the literati, and then it's like don't think about a rejection for more than 10 seconds, and then you're just like, am I doing my best work? Yeah. Well, be honest with yourself. Are you doing and send it out? But I'm not saying it's going to bring happiness or success, but just like, it won't bring you misery, because I see people who are like beating themselves up so much, and I just want to be like, it's like, be nice to yourself.
Yes. I totally agree, Nicole. I could not agree more.
Like, once in a while for a big thing, like a whole manuscript, you could think, oh, that was a rejection. And then I think, well, yeah, it's just the game.
It's just a matter of time before it is accepted, and you just keep moving forward. At the end of the day, you've got a poem, you've got a manuscript, and it's gonna find its place out there.
And I'm not saying like false hope, but it's there's nothing but pain and misery if I'm going to dwell in rejections. I mean, I also have to be realistic, but I'm like, just dust yourself off, and just you got to keep one foot and just put one foot in front of the other. It took me a long time to finish writing this book, and it took a while to find a publisher, but that's like, what am I gonna do? Like, kick myself and be like, no
way,
like,
no way.
I got a book.
That's good, Nicole. That's perfect advice.
Recommendation one more time.
That book recommendation one more time, Nicole.
Oh yes, Susan de Sola. This is from Able Muse Press. This came out in 2019.
Beautiful.
Frozen Charlotte. It's a beautiful, and she marries free verse and formalism in here, because she's so skilled at both. And they're funny poems, and they're serious and poignant and lovely, gorgeous poems. And I just picked I picked a little fun short one that I like.
Thank you for sharing that one.
She's so talented, and yes, we lost her too soon. So I wanted to give her book a shout out.
Thank you so much, Nicole.
Thank you.
Ken, we need that pearl of wisdom and recommendation.
Well, I mean, you can spend a lot of time. I spent a lot of time having a lot of ideas, and sometimes and then you forget the ideas, and you can drive yourself crazy with ideas. And so you feel all sorts of different ways with ideas, but I never feel better than when I've actually put something down on paper. And I can't emphasize enough with my students. It's just like, I could spend more time dealing with one piece and revising and revising and revising. And I see the importance of that, of course, but I like to get them to produce as much work as they can throughout the course of a semester. Even the stuff that they don't end up developing, they just, I just get prompting, writing. So by the time they're done, they've got all these pages of work, a lot of unfinished stuff. Because I just feel like sitting down and actually writing, whether it's good, whether it's bad, or whatever, and having a rhythm with that. And then the other thing I would say is go find a typewriter and try it out and see what it feels like to write on a typewriter.
Yes.
Students, because it's such a totally different space that you get into when when you can't just
Cool.
suddenly start watching a movie on the thing you're typing on. You can't
That's right.
fill all your correspondence to the thing you're typing on. And so yeah, I like typewriters.
That
And
is so
are you
cool.
like someone who like writes out a lot by longhand, or you like typing in computer better?
I mainly will type in the computer, although I do have a collection of typewriters, and I got one set up upstairs, manual with no electric. Although most of mine are electric, but I love to just go into that space as well. And I'll write out by hand too. But you can't. The reason why the typewriter is good is that you can do pretty quick scanning once you have a bunch of pages,
Right.
and get it right into Word pretty closely, and then just start working on the document that way if you need to. So it's I'm
That
not a
is
great
so
typist.
cool. And I love your recommendation about about kind of that fluidity, because so much of the time we're so critical of ourselves and what other people are going to think. We stop ourselves before we even start, and just teaching your students, just get in that rhythm, stay in that rhythm, just do it, go, 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 go. So
The
good.
self-loathing writer, I always tell my students, like, you can write 2 pages and hate it, because it just didn't work out. But look at it a month later, and you'll start.
Yes.
Once you get out of that headspace, and it's there. It's there for you to work on.
Yeah. And well, you mentioned Russell Edson, but any other book recommendations?
Yeah, it's funny. I wish I had something more contemporary, but I'm going to give a shout out. I just read recently. I finished reading all of James Baldwin's 6 novels in a row.
Wow.
And Tell Me How Long the Train's Been Gone, his 4th book, was really I enjoyed all of them. But that one is the story of Leo Proudhammer, who's a stage actor, and his whole, and like all of Baldwin's novels, really, it leaps ahead, it goes back, it comes from a different direction. It's just such a well-told story. And his language, is so complex and yet sort of perfect, and rhythmic, and you can hear it, and it's like listening to him speak. And when you listen to James Baldwin talk, his prose just does that. And so it's just fantastic. And it was such a great experience. I'd read the first 2 novels years ago, and started by rereading those, Go Tell on the Mountain and Giovanni's Room, and then I never looked at the other ones. So and because of Baldwin's as a young writer and reader, he got into Dickens as a kid, whatever books he could grab and read. Now I'm starting to read Charles Dickens, because I haven't really done a lot of reading Charles Dickens. So I'm just entering into Charles Dickens now. So maybe at some point I'll have a Charles Dickens recommendation, like anybody needs a Charles Dickens.
Why not?
But it's pretty amazing stuff.
Great stuff, though. It's great.
It is. Thank you so much to both of our guests tonight, Nicole Caruso Garcia and Ken Cormier.
Thank you.
Thank you for having it.
It was our pleasure. You were both absolutely captivating, wonderful. So great to hear you, and what a treat to get to spend this time with you and get to know more about you and hear you answer our questions. We're going to have you back, clearly. Please stay in touch. It was so wonderful to hear you tonight. Thank you so much. And thank you to our audience for enjoying everything. And you both have to go hop onto Facebook and see all of the love.
And Ken, since you mentioned that you love Marilyn Nelson's work, I should mention that she's our keynote speaker in May for the Poetry by the Sea conference up in Madison.
Woo!
So it's taking place May 24th through the 27th in person after a few years of hiatus. But Marilyn Nelson is our keynote speaker this year. So you might love that.
Yeah,
everyone check out Poetry by the Sea in Madison, Connecticut. It's going to be awesome.
She's great.
And we will see you. Yes. And we will be back next week with our open mic night, our spring open mic, with what Chris said, our cavalcade of about 10 readers.
It's going to be quite a night. It could. Totally. I would go through the names again, but I'm tired.
But, it's going to be amazing.
Yeah, it's going to be incredible. Many returning readers and a couple new ones. So it's going to be great.
It's going to be wonderful. Thank you all again, and have a wonderful night.
Thank you, and thank you to everyone who turned in.
Yeah.
Thank you.